It's Jeff Hyman with Startup Therapist, and we've got a fantastic guest today, Tom Gimbel. How are you, Tom?
I'm doing great, Jeff. Great to see you, and great to be with you.
It's good to see you. Tom is the founder and the head of LaSalle Network, which is one of the largest and fastest growing in Chicago in terms of staffing and recruiting and all things people related. So he's the perfect person for us to talk to today. Tom, you started LaSalle Network, I think, about almost 18 years ago?
Yeah, 1998, just over 17 years.
Okay, so plenty of experience. And tell us a bit about the firm, and then we'll get right into it.
So we're a Chicago-based firm where for the first 15 and a half, 16 years, all of our business was located in Chicago. Year and a half or so ago, we expanded doing nationwide searches in New York and San Francisco and Madison and Nashville and a bunch of other places. And now we've got feet on the ground, so to speak, in San Francisco, but still predominantly Chicago-focused for our staffing business, our temp and contract stuff, and then our searches all over the country and in Chicago. We've got about 150 employees, 4 physical locations, 3 in Chicago, 1 out west, and looking to continue to expand that footprint.
I happen to know that Tom is pretty modest. You're consistently ranked in the Inc. 5000. You are frequently on CNBC commenting on the markets and the job market, so people may be familiar with you a bit already. But today we're going to talk a little bit about back to the origin, what it's like to start a company at its inception, biggest mistakes you made along the way, and then we'll, of course, talk about recruiting and staffing, because that's one of the biggest challenges that a lot of our readers face.
Sure.
So, go ahead.
I was going to say, the number one thing is if you're not scared, then you're probably... Yeah, I don't know if you inherited money or whatever the problem. There's too many problems. So if you're not scared when you start up something, you're not the right guy.
So let's talk about that. Have you met people along the way that you feel should not be entrepreneurs? Are entrepreneurs born or made?
I think entrepreneurs are born. They may not always know it. I think the idea of teaching entrepreneurism, it baffles me to a bit, not degrading any of the professors that do it. But I think that there is an innate ability to want to grow it. Now, I think technology has changed that a little bit with the ability that you can be an entrepreneur by creating an app. And right. You can do things with much smaller staffs than, I started almost 20 years ago. It was just a different world then.
Right.
And you go back in time, historically, you needed more capital, more infrastructure, more people, brick and mortar, and so there was more to it. So I think there is an aspect that it can probably be taught for somebody that wants to do it, but the ability to not make payroll, to be afraid of not making payroll, to understand that people are going to leave you for the wrong reasons or the right reasons, and the whole aspect of it, and then the global nature of the world today,
sure.
And how you have to how that affects your business, even if you're not a global player.
It's a totally
different, a lot more to it.
Totally different game. So Going back to the origin, when you think about those first, let's say the first year, it's public record. So you're about a $40 million revenue business as of last year. That's an Inc. magazine. So you've
about 30% over that this year, Jeff.
Fantastic. So clearly a very successful business. You started off, you had nothing. It was you and a phone building a staffing and recruiting company. How do you get the first customers? How do you get people to take a shot on you? Did you have outside investors or you bootstrapped?
No, I started the company myself. I bootstrapped the whole thing. Okay. And I hired one guy who I'd known for about a year, and then I hired another person in their early 20s, kind of that typical model of try to get somebody who knows a little bit about what they're doing and somebody who's just got a lot of energy and see what you can build.
And what did you find were the keys in that first year to staying alive, getting your first customers, getting people to take a chance on Tom when they don't know Tom, they don't know LaSalle?
I'm a sales guy by nature. So for me, that was the easy part, was getting orders and getting clients to want to give us an opportunity. And every business is different. I come from a non-contractual business where a company can give you an opportunity without really committing to you. So that wasn't as big of a challenge for me. The biggest challenge that I look at in 2020 hindsight, right, is I didn't micromanage staff enough in the early days. And I think the biggest thing people want to say is, I'm paying you a good dollar, I shouldn't have to micromanage you. And the answer is, until you know what they can do, why would you not, right? We hire babysitters for our kids, and the first time we do it, we call the babysitter 75 times.
So just to play devil's advocate a bit, you have 150 people now in the organization. So you've got managers of managers, et cetera. Would you say that you're a micromanager today?
I wouldn't say I necessarily am, but I expect the managers over the people that are doing the activity to know what the heck's going on all the time with their groups. Now, I believe in an internal communication structure where people communicate up, and I believe that there isn't micromanagement if staff are communicating. And so I use the word because it's become such a negative stereotype, but I don't believe it is. I always look back for analogies, Jeff, and I'm telling you, if there were more micromanagers, there never would have been a Gulf oil disaster.
But isn't that really accountability more than micromanaging? To me, micromanaging, and I think to a lot of people, means I'm on you every day, understanding and correcting every email you write and all that kind of stuff. That's not what you're talking about.
No, it's not what I'm talking about. It's tomato, I think, to an extent, though, because if you have people that are on the same page as you and they understand why you're asking the questions, they're communicating to you before you need to communicate to them. Mm-hmm. And there's this office space, stereotype of the guy on the cube with the coffee, and I think that's an extreme, just like anything else.
Right.
And I think you need to have expectations and accountability. But if you're not checking in on the accountability, we have accountability, I expect them to do that. That's not accountability, that's delegation.
So tell us a story about how you knew along the way when you were erring too much in either direction. So too much micromanaging and maybe your staff was unhappy, or too little and a fire burst out.
In the beginning, I didn't micromanage at all, and it hurt me. And then I got to I'm a better lead. I think I understand where my strengths are. I'm a better leader of people than I am a manager of people. Mm-hmm. And so I think managers, the art of middle management is one that is long forgotten. It's one that establishes and grows a good economy. It's one that gets cut out in a bad economy. And it is much more of an art than a science. And the best middle managers are hugely important. I think a lot of us would say that those are the people that help shape a lot of our careers along the way.
How does a founder or entrepreneur know when it's time to bring in some professional managers? Some people used to call them gray hair, etc. Versus keeping a hand on the wheel and staying, in the day-to-day?
Well, I actually think it's different than that. I think that I know that a lot of companies view the gray-haired and bring in professional managers. To me, those are professional operators, right? I'm talking about mid to high five-figure people to come in and manage groups of people doing jobs, whether it's producing a product or executing on a service, and whether so many companies now with the advent of technology, we're service businesses.
Yeah. Right? So you're talking about team leaders. So you've got one throat to choke, and they own it.
Yeah, it might be. It could be whether it's a law firm or an advertising firm or a marketing firm. There's people that are leading groups of people, and then they come in at the 11th hour and they want to change everything.
Right.
It's like, that's not how you manage people.
So whether it's for your firm or many of the clients that you serve, how do you know when you're ready to add that layer of infrastructure and obviously cost as a startup, right? Most of our readers are founders and entrepreneurs. How do you know when you're there? Is it a revenue metric? Is it a size metric?
I don't think it's a revenue. Well, you know what you can afford, and only you know how much debt you're willing to go into or how much profit you need to take out. But I think that it gets to be where your strengths are. If you like managing, and I've seen this with entrepreneurs as well, if you like the management side of your business, then you should gravitate towards that, and you should bring somebody else in to augment that.
Yeah.
And maybe you are the manager that you are looking for, but everybody can't do everything. And if you're going to be the client interfacing person and be so focused on the sales and the delivery, you can't also be managing people on every aspect of what they're doing. So it comes on, where is the delivery faulting with your clients? So to me, that's really the end all of when you need to get better delivery for your clients than what you've had in the past, then you need to bring in a manager.
Got it. Tell us a little about the system that you've set up. Clearly, you're a student of leadership and management. What does that look like on a daily basis, weekly basis, quarterly basis? How do you kind of develop a cadence for the company so that you are on top of the detail but not too much in the detail?
We start Cadence, I feel like you're going to slap me like in Whiplash, so I'm getting a little nervous. I think the cadence is the hardest part, and I think managing people truly to steal from you is really like being a conductor of an orchestra. I firmly believe in that analogy and knowing when to pick on the right people and where to play and what the tempo is. And when you're dealing with people, there's this assumption in corporate America that everybody is bringing their A game every day. Right? I've been in sales for 20 years. Nobody brings their A game every day.
It's just not possible.
It's impossible. It's impossible. You've got between 19 and 22 days of work in a month, not to mention what we're doing on weekends, right? But you got 19 to 22 days. You eliminate 10% for not feeling great, a death in the family, whatever it is. We're working on 17 to 18 days a month.
Right.
And I think what good managers realize that I can't get 100% of output every single day.
So what does that give us some specifics? What are you watching daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, whether it's metrics or reports or meetings with your team? What does that look like?
We do a lot of metrics. So how many, we're a recruiting and staffing firm, as you mentioned. So how many interviews you're doing, how many client meetings you have, how many interviews we're getting for our clients to actually meet people, and then what the close ratio is. But more important than that, and again, we're a sales delivery organization, we measure the intangible, and that is attitude. And you can see it in the eyes.
How do you measure that? How do you do that?
What? I challenge my managers to do that every day. We do a lot of stack ranking. A lot of stack ranking.
Of your team? Of
our teams. Twice a month I have managers rank their people. Not because I'm not Jack Welch and I'm not firing the bottom 10%, but if they're not looking every single month at who's top and bottom, and their feelings aren't just based on the numbers. I think when you make decisions in corporate America, especially in a service business, based purely on numbers, you will falter.
Yeah.
There is an intangible people aspect, and only the manager knows that. The key is what your manager to staff ratio is. And ideally, I think it's about from a direct management responsibility, call it supervisor maybe in your terminology. Maybe it's an 8-to-1 ratio.
That's what you found to be the best ratio.
Now I've got people I've got people running teams of 12 or 14, and I've got people running teams of 4.
Right, but on average, 8 seems to work well.
I think 8-to-1 is a supervisor-manager ratio. Is a good ratio.
So Tom, do you have 8 direct reports?
I have 6.
You have 6, okay. I think you had mentioned a while back that you had brought in, because you've got a great sales focus, you're the inspiring leader of the business, you brought in some senior level professional management as well to run operations.
Yeah.
How has that worked, and how has that changed your role as founder and also of the business?
It's fairly new, so I can't even give you a great view on that. But I think the goal was most of my leadership team has been grown from within. And I've also, it's not all that people. It's not. I don't want all people that are, yes, Tom, let's do that people. And we've gotten rid of some people. But 80% of my management team was homegrown. So I brought in somebody who's got outside experience. But most importantly, they fit our culture.
Right.
And I think the biggest issue that comes up that I see is when people want a skill set and they think the skill set is more important than the culture, which is fine if you're willing to change your culture.
Right. Otherwise, it's a mistake every time.
Every time.
Okay, so then that begs the question, how do you interview for culture? When you've got a candidate who clearly has the background and skill set, how do you get your arms around whether it's going to be a culture fit?
I don't know if you're going to like this one, Jeff. Do you like the person? Pure and simple. And if you can't get them to break, now there's different kinds of managers. I want the truth, right? I'm Tom Cruise and A Few Good Men. I can handle it, and I want the truth.
So how do you get at the truth?
Well, you've got to create a setting in an interview. Number one, I'm not telling you it's got to be top grading and you're spending 8 hours doing it, but you've got to spend enough time where you find out who they really are. I want to know about people's families. I want to know it's going to come up. We're entrepreneurs. We're working 1 million hours. You're bringing somebody in a leadership, and you think there aren't going to be work-life issues? You better know about them. You better know. And if people aren't willing to talk about that aspect of their life, they're not right for me.
Because they're not an open, all-in...
They're not an open book.
Right.
Now, I know other people that go, keep your personal life out there and come in here and crank it out.
Right.
And we're algorithms and big data all the time. Nothing else. Okay, good.
So there are some cultures where that works. You're just describing your particular culture.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, I think what everyone's looking for is the secret sauce. I get asked all the time, tell me how you win the culture awards.
Yeah,
how do you get best company? It works for us. Yeah. We're only a best company to work for because we've got the right people who want to work here.
Now, you win those awards consistently. Again, I know you're very modest about it. What have you done in the culture? Obviously, hiring the right people. But what have you done to develop the culture that has achieved that?
We fire the wrong people.
Okay, so tell us a little about how you know when they're the wrong person, how long do you wait, and how do you do it in such a way that you preserve the dignity of the people and not rattle others?
Well, the rattling the others is always an issue. And the key is that we've got really good tenure in the company. So we've got what do you want to call them, key influencers
Yeah.
who can come in and reassure people aside from Tom saying, oh, everything's going to be great, right? We've got key influencers that are sending the message out that, hey, this person wasn't right.
Right.
And what I think management's job is not to explain why somebody shouldn't be worried, scared, sad when somebody gets terminated, but reminding them how they felt when the person who got terminated was dropping the ball on their work. I say it all the time to people. I go, listen, you're friends with them. I get it. You like them. You're sad, scared today. But let me remind you how you felt 2 months ago when you sent the email to your boss.
Right. So how long do you give someone? How do you know when it's not a culture fit?
Well, can I quote the Supreme Court? Right?
Yes.
I don't know how to tell you what pornography is, but I know it when I see it. Right? And I think the majority of business owners and leaders, they know when they've got a cancer in their midst, and they just don't like confrontation enough to kill it, or they think that the work that the person's doing is so monumental that the company can't go on without them. Both are not true.
Most founders have told me that every time they get rid of someone, especially for culture reasons or performance, they regret they didn't do it sooner.
Always.
Got it.
Always.
You
but
found
easier said than done.
Yeah. Well, yeah, if you don't have a backfill, or you need to be prepared that work's going to stop.
I firmly believe that people might not say this up front, but it's better to have 4 people doing the work of 5 that are really good, because they'll move faster.
Sure.
There's better camaraderie.
Sure.
And you know as well as I do, Jeff, with your background, the funnest of times, it's when you don't have a lot of money, you don't have great office space, and you're doing things in this crunched-in quarters, and everybody's feeding off each other.
How do you do this back in the early days? So again, most of our viewers are founders, maybe the first few years of their startup.
Yeah.
The culture's still being formed. You don't have long tenure. You don't have a lot of extra staff. How do you make the decision then around this culture fit?
Well, I think there's so many different buckets. I think there's the bootstrapping bucket versus the venture bucket, and when you're playing with your own money versus somebody else's. And I'm not saying that there aren't great workers and great solutions on that side, but there's definitely a different model of losing your own money and not being able to pay your mortgage.
Right. Got it.
I think there fundamentally are. But I think the biggest mistake I see entrepreneurs make is they manage out of fear of turnover.
So what does that look like, and what is the issue?
I'm not going to have the tough conversations with somebody either on project deadlines or on culture attitude, because I'm afraid they will quit.
And what are founders truly fearful of when that goes through their brain?
Who's going to do the work? How the other employees are going to look at it? What's the clients are going to say?
Got it.
And fear of turnover is the worst management strategy in the world.
So you would tell those founders, suck it up, deal with the repercussions.
Yep.
Because whatever they are, it's better than having a B or C player on the team.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing that is really important, and what entrepreneurs and founders should do, is whether you have a staff of 3 or 10 when you start out, have one-on-one weekly meetings with every single employee who reports to you. Because if you're having meetings with them when things are good, right, then it's not so hard to have the tough conversation when things are bad. Because
you've established a relationship and a rapport by then. So back to the cadence idea. You're meeting, and you require your managers to meet one-on-one with everyone every week.
Now, they do it now because the groups have just gotten bigger. They meet every other week.
Oh, okay.
But I think when you're under 10 people, there's no reason that you shouldn't be meeting every week.
Got it. Okay, very good. Let's talk about something a little bit crazy that you do. My understanding is that you take the entire company to a destination. Is that every year, or is that based on how the company does?
We've done it a few times. We've done it probably 5 times.
You've taken the whole company. Now,
receptionists, accounting clerks, CFO, HR, salespeople, everybody.
Some of the destinations were?
Napa and San Francisco, Vegas, Miami, and South Beach.
Okay. Now, the company's bootstrapped, so you can make that decision. You don't have investors to explain this to. It would probably be a little bit difficult or different if that was the case.
Yep.
But you've bootstrapped it. You've done it. So what is the purpose of those trips? I have to imagine you spend a fortune. What does that look like?
So the key is I changed it 3 years ago, and I tied it to a fourth quarter incentive. So whether we're on plan for what our budget was originally in January, or if we're behind budget, I'll create a new goal for the fourth quarter, and I'll say, if we do this, everybody goes. Right? All of a sudden, I've got my person doing collections calls. They're getting leads from the people in accounts payable at the clients they're calling.
Right.
That's the mentality I've got at people who aren't even involved in growing the business.
Was there ever a time where you missed that goal and the company trip didn't happen?
Haven't yet.
What's going to happen when that day comes
It's something I talk about with my leadership team a lot.
You missed the number by $1, and
you
can't bring everyone on the trip because otherwise they're going to feel like you're not good to your word when it means goal setting.
You got to do it right.
That's going to be a tough day.
You better hit. Well, and the thing is, what I do is I lay out the incentive. I'm not an idiot, so it pays for the trip.
Yeah, of course.
It's got to make sense that way.
Yeah.
And it gives people a taste of what we can do and the fun we can have. I mean, I think work should be fun. I think we should work hard, achieve goals, but let's celebrate it.
Yep.
Let's enjoy the fun. And I always want, as an entrepreneur and as a business person, I always want my staff to be able to talk to their friends and their family about the cool stuff we do. And at the same time, it doesn't work if we don't make money.
You can do both.
For sure.
You make it sound easy, Tom.
That's hard. I used to have hair.
Let's talk about one last topic, which is recruiting and talent. So you run a recruiting company, 18 years. Share with founders and entrepreneurs some of the key things you've learned about hiring A players, whether it's the interviews, the process. How do you do it?
Yeah, I think, well, a lot of times who you think is going to be the A player and who ends up being the A player are two completely different things. And a resume is a marketing tool. It is a pitch board for a job.
It's a brochure.
I've seen people, one of the best things I ever read was somebody held up a resume and they said to somebody they were firing, I hired this and I got you. And I get that. The biggest thing I believe is that stability shows, right? This isn't rocket science. Stability shows consistency. And when somebody's had a new job, how great their background is, were they really able to implement what they thought they were implementing?
You broke there just for a little. What is the turnover metric that you kind of look for? How long is stability?
I like 4 years.
In a role? In a company?
In a company.
Got it. So if they've gone from job to job every 2 years, you're less inclined to spend time with them.
Oh, I know guys who've been, or women, men or women who've been to, they graduated from, Booth or Northwestern or Wharton or wherever, and they're educated, they're intelligent, but 2 years at Google, 2 years at Intuit, 2 years, and I meet the people, and I get why they turn over. They don't, and I talk to their old bosses, and they're like,
what's the key reason that you find usually for that choppy background?
Well, I think there's twofold. I think number one, they get caught. They get caught that they're not as good at the job as what they are, and they're being held accountable, and they can't deliver. So it's easier to go on to the next one. And the other one is they're always looking at the next best thing. You don't want to, that's what kind of relationship is that?
But to play devil's advocate, what do you say to people who say that careers and tenures with companies are over? The average job duration has consistently shrunk. It's less than 2 years, I think, in this country. So we should expect to see that kind of turnover in people's backgrounds. You don't buy it.
It's an excuse for people who want to be able to do what they want to do when they want to do it and not have any obligation to the organization for which they committed to results. Okay. I think it's tell your kid that when they want to quit their sports team or their debate team in the middle of the season. You make a commitment to do something, follow through, grow it, and the recognition you get and the self-fulfillment you have from stability it's outstanding.
Well, it clearly works. You've built a 150-person organization with very low turnover. You send them to Vegas or Miami every year, and you're in the Inc. 5000. So we appreciate the time you spent with us.
Anytime for you.
How do people get in touch with LaSalle or with you if they're interested in learning more about how to engage you to help them find people?
Our website is LaSalle, LaSalle Network.com, and you can get me at Tom Gimbel on Twitter.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks for having me.
See ya.